It is only for 1 week of your life, and it will decidedly alter everything for the better. For the rest of your life, indeed, for all eternity, everything will be different and better than if you had never undertaken it. Hello, all spiritual beings. Today we choose a fascinating book that has shaken the foundations of spirituality and psychology. It is not just a book, but a powerful tool that has impacted the lives of millions. This small but great treasure has brought healing, family harmony, and the finding of happiness and peace of mind to many people. If you wish to carry out what we will discuss in this video, be sure to read instructions carefully and carry them out accurately. Today, diet is a topic of great public interest, with numerous articles in newspapers and magazines, and books exploring aspects such as protein and vitamins. Experts stress that we are what we eat, as our bodies are made up of what we have ingested in the past. What we eat today affects our health and forms the basis of our body tissues, and this is perfectly true. However, here I am going to address this issue of dieting on an infinitely deeper and more far-reaching level. I refer, of course, to the mental diet. The most important factor in life is the mental diet on which one lives. It is the food that is provided for the mind that completely determines the character of life. The thoughts you indulge in, the matters on which you distract your mind, are what will make you and your surroundings what you are. As your thoughts are, so will your life be. All that exists in your life today, the state of your body, whether you are healthy or sick, the state of your finances, whether you are prosperous or impoverished, the state of your home, whether you are happy or the opposite. In fact, the present conditions of each phase of your life are wholly conditioned by the thoughts and feelings you had in the past, as well as by the habitual tone of your past thoughts. Likewise, the conditions of your life tomorrow and next week and next year will be conditioned entirely by the thoughts and feelings you choose to harbor from now on. In other words, you choose your life. That is, you choose all the conditions of your life when you choose the thoughts in which your mind is occupied. In life, thought is the true causal force and there is no other. You cannot have one kind of mind and another kind of environment. This means that you cannot change your environment and leave your mind intact, just as you cannot change your mind without also changing your environment. This is the real key to life. If you change your mind, your conditions have to change. Your work or activities have to change. Your home has to change. The whole of your whole life has to change, since your usual happiness or sadness depends only on your diet. Let this be very clear. If you change your mind, the conditions of your life must change as well. We are transformed by the renewal of our minds. So now you will see that your mental diet is really the most important thing in your life. This can be called the great cosmic law, and its truth is evident once it is expressed in this way. In fact, I know of no thoughtful person who denies its essential truth. The difficulty in applying it, however, arises from the fact that our thoughts are so close to us that it is difficult, without a little practice, to withdraw, as it were, and see them objectively. Nevertheless, this is just what we must learn to do. You have to get used to choose at a given moment the object of your thoughts, and also to choose the emotional tone, or what we call the mood that gives it color. Yes, it is true. He can undoubtedly choose his mood. If he could not do so, he would have no control over your life. You cannot be healthy, you cannot be happy, you cannot be prosperous if you are ill-disposed to be so. If you are morose, if you are indolent, if you are cynical, if you are depressed, if you feel superior, if you are frightened, your life is not worth living. Unless you are determined to cultivate a good disposition, give up all hope of making your life worthwhile. It is preferable to say so at once. If you are not determined to start now and to select carefully all day long the kind of thoughts you are going to have, then lose all hope of making your life what you want it to be. In short, if you want your life to be happy and worthwhile, which is what God wants you to make of it, you have to begin at once to train yourself in the habit of selecting and controlling your thoughts. The first few days this will be very difficult, but if you have perseverance, you will be able to do it more and more easily. And it is really the most interesting experiment you can make. What's more, thought control is the most interesting time spending you can practice. You will be surprised how many interesting things you will learn about yourself, and you will get results almost from the very beginning. Now, many people who know this truth well do make sporadic efforts at times to control their thoughts, but the stream of thoughts is so close, as I have already said, and the impacts from without are so constant and varied that they do not seem to make much progress. The only way is to resolutely form a new habit of thinking that responds when you are preoccupied or when you are not on your guard, just as if you were consciously engaged in the matter. This new habit of thinking has to be definitely acquired, and the basis for it can be established in a few days, as follows. Decide that you will devote 1 week exclusively to building a new thinking habit, and that during that week everything else will be unimportant compared to that. If you do, that week will be the most significant week of your entire life. It will literally be the turning point. If you do, I can assure you that everything in your life will have a favorable change. What's more, nothing will remain unchanged. This does not mean that you will be able to face your current problems with an overcoming spirit. It means that the difficulties will disappear. This is the scientific way to alter your life, and since it is in accordance with the great law, it is infallible. Do you understand now that by working in this way, you do not have to change conditions? What happens is that you apply the law, and conditions change spontaneously. You cannot change conditions directly. You have often tried and failed, but do the 7-day mental diet and conditions must change. So here is the prescription. For 7 days, you cannot allow yourself to entertain even for a minute thought that are not positive, constructive, optimistic, or kind. This discipline will be so forced that you will not be able to consciously maintain it for much more than a week. But I am not asking you to do so. 1 week will be enough because at the end of that time, the habit of thinking positively will begin to establish itself. Some extraordinary changes will have taken place in your life, enlivening it enormously, and then the future will take care of itself. The new way of life will be as attractive and much easier than the old one, and you will find your mentality aligning itself. But the 7 days will be forced. I don't want you to go into this without considering the cost. Physical diets are child's play by comparison, even if you have a good appetite. The more strenuous gymnastics combined with 45-kilometer marches is mild compared to this diet. But it's only for a week of your life, and it will decidedly alter everything for the better. For the rest of your life, indeed for all eternity, everything will be different and better than if you had never undertaken it. Do not start lightly. Before you start, think about it for a day or two. Then begin, and may God's grace be with you. You can start any day of the week when you get up after breakfast or lunch, it doesn't matter. But once you start, you have to continue it for 7 days. That is essential. The idea is to have 7 uninterrupted days of mental discipline in order to get the mind definitely on a new path. If you fudge the start, or if you do well for 2 or 3 days and then for whatever reason you go off the diet, you have to stop for several days and then start again. In Rip Van Winkle's story, Rip Van Winkle swore to abstain from liquor and immediately accepted the first drink offered to him, saying calmly, "I won't count this one." Well, in the 7-day mental diet, this is unacceptable. You have to take into account every slip, and even if you don't, nature will. When you slip up, you must stop the diet and start again. Now, in order to prevent these difficulties as far as possible, let us consider them in detail. First, what do I mean by negative thoughts? A negative thought is any thought of criticism, of spite or spitefulness, of jealousy, of condemnation of others, of blaming oneself. Any thought that is not positive and of a constructive nature, relating to oneself or to another, that is a negative thought. Do not worry too much about classification. In practice, you will never be in doubt as to whether it is positive or negative. Though your brain may try to deceive you, your heart will tell you the truth. Second, let it be clear that what is being asked is that you do not harbor negative things. Note this carefully. What is important is not the thoughts that come to your mind, but only those that you harbor and entertain. It does not matter what thoughts come, as long as you do not shelter them. Sheltering or harboring them is what matters. Of course, many negative thoughts will come to you all day long. Some will be placed in your mind, seemingly on their own. There will be negative thoughts that come from other people, from conversation or from their behavior. Or you will hear unpleasant news by letter or telephone, or see crimes or disasters announced in the headlines. These cases do not matter, as long as you do not accommodate them. Moreover, these are the things that provide the discipline that will transform you during this momentous week. The thing to do when presenting the negative thought is to reject it. Reject the newspaper, reject the thought in the letter, or the stupid comment or whatever. When the negative thought creeps into your mind, reject it immediately and think of something else. Whatever is better, think of God. A perfect analogy is the case of the man who is sitting by a campfire when a spark falls on his sleeve. If he shakes the ash off immediately, nothing can happen. But if he allows it to stay there just for a moment, no matter what the reason, the damage will have been done, and it will take work to repair the sleeve. So it is with a negative thought. Now, what to do with negative thoughts and conditions that we cannot currently avoid, such as problems at the office and at home? The answer is that such things will not affect your diet as long as you do not accept or fear them, believe in them, become indignant or sad about them, or give them any power. No negative condition that you must attend to will affect your diet. Go to the office, deal with home affairs, but do not let them affect you. Say mentally, none of these things move me, and all will be well. Suppose you have lunch with a friend who speaks negatively. Don't try to shut him up or snub him. Let him talk, but don't accept what he says and it won't affect your diet. Suppose you come home and find yourself confronted with negative talk. Don't preach a sermon, just don't accept them. Remember, mental acceptance is what constitutes the diet. Suppose you witness an accident or an injustice. Instead of reacting by accepting appearances and responding with pity or indignation, refuse to accept them. Do what you can to straighten things out, think properly, and leave it at that size. You will still be on a diet. Of course, it will be a great help if you can avoid during this week anyone who might very expressly arouse bad instincts. While you are on a diet, it is best to avoid people who get on your nerves, who annoy you. But if it is not possible to avoid them, discipline yourself a little more, that's all. Let's suppose that next week you have a very difficult test ahead of you. Well, if you have enough spiritual knowledge, you will know how to face it in a spiritual way. But for that matter, I think it will be better to wait to start the diet as soon as the matter is over. As I said before, do not take the diet lightly. Think it over first. In closing, I want to tell you that often people find that starting this diet stirs up all sorts of difficulties. It seems that suddenly everything starts to go wrong. This may seem disconcerting, but it is actually a good sign. It means that things are moving. And wasn't that precisely the goal we had in mind? Suppose your whole world seems to be shaking at its foundations. Hold on tight, let it shudder, and when it stops rocking, the picture will have reassembled itself and will begin to resemble what your heart longed for. This point is important and somewhat subtle. Don't you understand that stopping to think about these difficulties is in itself a negative thought that will perhaps put you off the diet? Of course, the remedy is not in denying that your world is apparently in turmoil, but in refusing to accept appearances, judge correctly. Keep your thoughts positive, optimistic, and kind, while appearances are wobbling. Keep them that way in spite of appearances, and a glorious victory will be certain. Every phase of your life will be radically altered for the better. One last warning. Don't tell anyone that you are on a diet or that you plan to start one. Keep this huge project strictly personal. Remember that your soul is the sacred place of the Most High. When you finish the diet successfully and have secured your demonstration, allow a reasonable amount of time to establish a new mindset, and then tell the story to someone you think might be able to help you. And finally, remember that nothing anyone has said or done can override the diet. Only your own reaction to other people's behavior can do that.